Welcome to Rewind, Rewatch. I'm Andrene.
I'm Joel.
We're siblings who will be watching 90s movies and basically evaluating them in today's eyes to see if they still hold up. Are they still funny? Are they still good? Or were they just bad to begin with? So today we decided to talk about Jumanji. This is a 1995 film rated PG. This actually is almost 2 hours long, if you can believe that.
What is it? Is it PG for moments of peril? Or is that... I've seen them put that in ratings before,
I just know
which I think is funny.
It says genre is kids, family, fantasy, adventure. I'm not quite sure why it's PG.
I think it's for the peril.
But
that's what I'm going with.
It may be dangerous, situation. But this is starring, of course, Robin Williams, the late great.
Of course.
I mean, this man in the 90s, if you're doing comedy, you need Robin Williams.
No 90s film is complete without Robin Williams. I mean, he was in like everything.
The Hook.
Mrs. Doubtfire.
Why have we not?
Aladdin, of course. That's
the
one
Genie.
Of the ones that comes to mind.
Yeah,
for me. Patch Adams, is that the 90s?
I believe. I believe it may be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good Will Hunting. So yeah, Robin Williams is obviously the star of this vehicle, and this is a movie that I actually picked for us to go over this week because I just remember it being a lot of fun to watch as a kid, especially with all the different action. Robin Williams isn't really doing Robin Williams things in this movie though.
At all.
Like he's actually like
a normal person.
It's like a kid's action film. He's not doing all the Mrs. Doubtfire stuff.
Correct.
Whereas like you watch that movie and you're like, oh, he's doing his full
he's in
Robin
his bag.
Williams.
Right.
Like he's not full Robin Williams in this movie. But it works. He does a great job.
Okay, so the PG rating is for adventure, action, suggestive content, and some language.
Okay, all right. I think there's a fair amount of peril, personally.
I do not see peril.
I don't know.
Peril
maybe
listed.
they didn't list it back in '95.
So before we talk about the rest of the cast, if you could sum up this movie in one sentence.
Oh God.
And I know how would you do that?
The worst part about this is that I had already practiced this, and now I've already forgotten what I said the first time. So I'm gonna try to do it again.
Start fresh.
Yeah, we're gonna have to. We're gonna have to start it. This movie is so a dangerous board game.
Okay.
Stop. Okay. All right. A dangerous board game captures a boy and must be played to completion to save him and the town.
Okay, it's not bad. It's not bad. So I have a sentence, and it is only 4 words long.
Okay.
So my sentence is: crazy board game causes chaos.
All right. Well, that's simple enough.
I
that
mean,
is exactly what happens.
There's a lot of chaos, and the board game is pretty crazy.
It is a crazy board game.
So before I talk about the plot, let's kind of talk about these characters for a little bit. So we mentioned Robin Williams. We also have Bonnie Hunt, and she plays Sarah Whittle.
Okay.
Bonnie Hunt was the mom in Beethoven, which is another great 90s film that we have got to cover.
Charles Grodin is in that one too.
Yes.
The OG.
Oh, so good.
I think he passed recently, didn't he?
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. Unfortunate.
I hope that's true. Otherwise, I'm one of those people.
People love talking about who's died.
I'm one of those people
who
mix up people
are alive
dying.
and well.
Oh, I was right. He actually died in 2021. So,
okay.
Rest in
Don't
peace
sound
to
so happy.
to the dad and the Beethoven. The dad in Beethoven.
Good dog. So we have Bonnie Hunt, and there were 2 very popular Hunts that were out in the 90s. You had Bonnie Hunt, and you had Helen Hunt.
The Hunts.
Helen, of course, had the sitcom. Was it Mad About You?
Mad About You with Paul Reiser.
Yeah. And
she was in like Twister. She was in As Good as It Gets.
Right. As Good as It Gets is a good movie.
As Good as It Gets is
good old Jack
pretty
Nicholson.
good movie.
That's a great one.
So yeah, I don't feel like I feel like Bonnie was the less popular of the two. I don't
Yeah.
really know any of her other stuff outside of this movie and the Beethoven films. I think there were like 3 Beethovens.
Yeah, but I don't think the same parents were in all of them.
No, I only watched the first 2
Yeah,
personally.
I don't think they were in the rest of them.
I gave up on Beethoven. It's almost like when they did like
Home Alone 3?
and
Oh,
4
God.
and 5 and 17.
Obnoxious.
Like, all right, dogs,
like once Kevin's not there, like count me out.
Yeah, exactly.
What's even the point?
No Bonnie Hunt. No Bonnie Hunt, no Beethoven. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, basically. So we also have.
Well, I just looked up Bonnie Hunt, and apparently she was also in Jerry Maguire.
Oh yes, she was Jerry Maguire's girlfriend's sister. They were living together with that cute little boy.
Oh,
Jonathan Lipnicki.
That's right.
Yes, she was the sister in that movie.
She's also done a fair number of animated films. She voiced in Cars, she voiced in Bug's Life, and she also was in Monsters, Inc.
Okay, so she's doing movies.
So
and Helen Hunt
shout out to her.
Was more
she also was in Rain Man. She was in Green Mile. I'm obviously underselling Bonnie Hunt. She's done way more than I realized.
Okay, so Bonnie Hunt is clearly amazing, and we apologize.
I'm over here talking about Beethoven.
Right. Green Mile.
She was in the Green Mile and Rain Man, and I'm giving her credit for the sloppy dog that slobbers all over her husband's shoes.
Saint Bernard.
Yeah. Andy Bernard. Saint Bernard. All right.
That's enough of that.
Let's get back to it.
David Alan Grier is in this film as well.
David Alan Grier. My favorite.
Yeah.
He's actually more of the comedic relief than Robin Williams.
Which is
you
surprising.
Don't expect
yeah.
When you go into a Robin Williams film, you expect to see him doing
Robin
Williams experience.
Right.
It's like we were talking earlier about how the 90s films had a lot of Robin Williams and a lot of Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
And it's like
that's all you needed.
When you went into Liar Liar, or you went into Ace Ventura, or you went into Dumb and Dumber,
or The Mask.
I'm gonna get Jim Carrey stuff out of this film.
Absolutely.
No matter what happens, even if the script is bad, at least I'm gonna see some Jim Carrey-ishness.
Right.
And I feel like this movie didn't have a lot of the Robin Williams-ishness.
But it didn't need it.
But it didn't really need it.
Didn't need it.
He pulls it off without getting into his full crazy man.
Yeah. Very surprising. But yeah, I did not remember David Alan Grier was in this movie at all. I remembered there being a black man in it, but but I didn't remember who it was.
You thought it was the guy from Green Mile. You thought he was in Jumanji. And you thought David Alan Grier was the magical Negro next to Tom Hanks.
And I thought Helen Hunt was in the Green Mile instead of Bonnie Hunt. I got them confused. I'm so sorry.
Could you imagine David Alan Grier in Green Mile?
He'd be cracking jokes.
Oh, man.
He'd be cracking jokes.
It would be a much different film. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, my. We're getting out of hand. Yeah, so he basically played one of the factory workers. In this movie, you have the main character. His name is Alan Parrish, and his pops runs this shoe factory. And David Alan Grier plays one of the workers in this shoe factory.
This is not just a shoe factory.
Oh, it's the
shoe factory, because this movie takes place in some small town called Brantford, New Hampshire, which I can't even name another film or TV show that's taking place in New Hampshire. That's like one of the most not explored states in this country, right?
Yeah.
Like people don't set things here. But I think it works for a number of reasons. Number one, because it creates this kind of small town feel. But also, there's some, I don't know, it doesn't really talk about being from New England, but I think it does add a little bit of.
They mention New England
in the film.
It.
Yeah.
They mention it. Yeah. So of course, he works for the shoe supplier, and we also have Kirsten Dunst. She plays Judy Shepard, the little girl. She is from Bring It On. She was cheering for the white school.
She was cheering for the white school.
The school that was stealing the black school's moves, for the record. But yeah, with Kirsten Dunst, she plays Judy. She's really young in this role. This is probably the first time I've seen her in a film. And interesting fact is that Scarlett Johansson actually auditioned for this role, but Kirsten beat her out.
Hmm.
Which is interesting because I feel like when I think of Scarlett Johansson, I just think of like sexy kitten, like bombshell.
Well, not when she was 11.
So it's like I just well, no, but it's
That
like
definitely wouldn't have worked.
but it's like I just can't imagine her playing like an innocent role because I always see her as the adult version. But anyway, so this movie starts off actually in 1869. And at that time, we see these two young kids. They're riding like in the middle of the night. It's like raining. They're in a horse and buggy, and they're burying this game called Jumanji. And all we hear are these drums like, dun, 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 dun. And they're like, we gotta cover it up, make sure no one finds this game. And then, of course, it fast forwards to 100 years later. It's now 1969. And we see the main character, Alan Parrish. He's getting bullied by these kids. They're threatening to steal his bike. They're chasing him. And he tries to seek shelter in his dad's shoemaker store. And he gets into this factory, and he's hiding out in there, looking out the window. He's obviously scared. And while he's in there, David Alan Grier's character shows him this new shoe he's invented, which is basically like, a sneaker. First time they've seen it, and he's like, "What's this for?" And he's like, "Oh, this is gonna revolutionize the way people wear shoes, and it's gonna be in every single home. If I can just get Wilt Chamberlain to wear these, they'll be huge."
Wilt Chamberlain.
That's what he says. They'll be huge. And he's like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." And absentmindedly, Alan places the shoe on a conveyor belt, and basically the shoe gets crushed. Not only is the shoe ruined, but the machine is now ruined. So his pop shows up, and he's like, "What's going on? Who did this?" And Alan basically looks over, sees what's happening, and then he just bounces.
I'm out of here.
Doesn't own up to it. David Alan Grier character instead is like, "Yeah, it's my shoe. I did it." And he gets canned.
Can we talk about that for a second, actually? Because as a black man, I'm watching that part.
Yeah, I was pissed.
It definitely rubbed me the wrong way. Number one, the fact that he actually didn't put it there, right? The son saw what was happening, didn't want to smoke with his dad, and was like, "I'm going to just let somebody else get in trouble on my behalf," which is just like the history of racial relations in this country. And then he, being the nice guy that he is, doesn't want to pass the buck. So then he takes the ownership for something that really wasn't his fault.
Was not.
Which makes me feel some type of way. Not to mention, I think the other part of it is the fact that, like, he invented the modern basketball sneaker in 1969.
Yes.
This man should have been a millionaire. You know what I'm saying? Like, he should have, at the very least, maybe Mr. Parrish looks at the idea and says, like, "I'm not doing this," and it doesn't get made anyway.
Right.
It's very possible. But what if he did? What if it blew up? He would have been responsible for a revolution in shoe wear. And instead, he's still stuck in Brantford 30 years later, working as a police officer, probably making peanuts.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Compared to, and who knows how many other jobs he had in between that time.
Yeah, you're right.
Because he's only a police officer because he got fired from the shoe company that ends up folding anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah, that was like a sliding doors moment for that character.
Of course.
And just like what would have happened if that didn't happen. Well, I guess we find that out at the end of the movie anyway. A little bit.
Oh, yeah, they do mention.
Yeah.
That's a good quote. Yeah, they do mention that later on. But yeah, you're right about rubbing the wrong way. But from this moment, we're seeing that Alan does not know how to deal with confrontation, right? And so he, runs outside.
I mean, to be fair,
he's a kid.
How many kids are really comfortable dealing with confrontation in the first place?
He's a kid. I get it.
I'm not going to hold him on that too much.
You just feel bad for the character. I get it. So he goes outside, and then you see, these kids are still outside waiting for him. And they're like, "Yeah, you're about to get your bike." And instead of running away, he actually does kind of stand up to them. And he basically gets his butt kicked. They beat him up. They take his bike.
You get the sense this isn't like the first time.
Oh, absolutely not.
Like, he gets beat up.
Yes, this is what he does.
Yeah, it's like what's the kid from Christmas Story Has those bullies?
Oh,
Ralphie?
Ralphie?
Yeah.
Hey, Boris, how'd you like a snowball sandwich?
Oh, his
It's
glasses.
giving Ralphie.
Yeah.
It's giving Ralphie. Less cute, but yeah, he
Yeah.
definitely has like the group of bullies that picks on him. And apparently the whole thing is he's hanging out with this girl, Sarah, and the bully is threatened by him and is basically like, I'm gonna beat you up because you're hanging out with my girlfriend.
Yeah.
And I don't want you hanging out with her no more. And if you do, I'm gonna beat you up again until you stop.
And he's like, I'm not gonna stop.
So this is the whole beef is like, don't hang out with my girl or
Right.
else you're getting these hands.
And it's like, first of all, your girl, like y'all are 12. Like this is not your girl. But okay, it's his girlfriend. So now he has to walk home, and as he's walking, there's a construction site, and it's near his pop's shoe factory, and he hears these drums. Dun, 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 dun. Now,
apparently nobody else hears it either.
No,
that's the other part.
No one else hears
it. He's
it.
the only one that hears
and
it.
also, how he can hear it over the construction, I'm still not quite sure.
It's a loud drum.
And then he ends up finding his way, like he's like walking through like mounds of dirt, and he finds his way into where this Jumanji is hidden, and he like digs it out.
Oh, nobody stops him.
No one stops him.
Nobody even sees him.
No, one of the guys actually turns around and sees him and just kind of like doesn't even care as a child. Well, maybe.
It's all good.
He's just in there, so he digs the game out. And he's like, "Wow, what's this? Some ancient Jumanji game." First of all, if I hear a game with drums and then I pull it out and I see it's some ancient, I'm not bringing this thing into my house.
Well,
like there's no way I'm doing that.
This is white curiosity.
Yeah, that is true.
This is what it is.
They're like, "What's that noise? What? Who?
Nah, yeah.
Who is that?"
They always want to figure it out.
They want to Scooby Doo it.
Yeah.
So he takes this game.
You notice there were no black characters.
No, one of the bullies was a black kid.
Huh? I'm talking about Scooby Doo.
Oh, okay. I'm like, one of the bullies was definitely a black kid.
Like, I'm gonna let y'all figure it out. Take my ass home.
It kind of reminds me, there's just a slight deviation. Have you ever seen The Skeleton Key? There's a lot of some stuff going on with like some possible witchcraft, and there's a white girl and basically her black friend. She's like, "Oh, you're gonna come into the store with me?" And then the black girl's like, "Yeah, I'm not going in there." And she's like, "You can go. I'll be outside." So yeah, we definitely don't mess with that kind of stuff. So anyway, he takes this game. He goes home. And that night, his dad basically says, "Oh, you stood up to the bullies," because he can see his son has a black eye and a bloody lip. And he's like, "I'm proud of you, son. I think you're ready to go away to boarding school." Which I was like, okay, so you stood up for yourself. Now get the hell out of here. Like that was
your reward is being forced out of
your eternal reward.
Yeah. He's gonna get his eternal reward soon.
But basically, it's supposed to be like some prestigious activity. Like I think apparently he went there. His grandfather went there. His great grandfather went there. They're kind of showing that he comes from old money, right? He lives in this mansion.
Oh, he 100% comes from old money.
I mean, this house is just, it's got to be the biggest house in the city, if not the state. And so his dad says, "This is his boarding school. You're going to go here. I went there. Your grandfather went there. Now it's your opportunity to go." And I believe one of the actual halls is like named after his grandfather or something. It's like Parrish Hall, which again, it's like, how would you feel as a kid knowing that you're going to a school that has like a brown hall? Like, I would feel very weird because other kids are going to make fun of you and be like, "Oh, this guy," Yeah,
and even if they're not making fun of you, it's going to be a sense of like indignation and like they're not going to want to
hang out with you.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, like he thinks he's better than us, right? But he doesn't. But that's how they're going to feel.
Exactly. Not to mention this guy has like, there's like some memorial or some monument set up in the city.
Yeah, it shows like right at the beginning of the film where they go from 1869 to 1969. They show like the town square in this town, Brantford, New Hampshire, and they show like this statue of General Angus Parrish. It's not explained at any other point in the film who General Angus Parrish is, but there's obviously supposed to be some sort of indication that like not only does he come from old prestige, but also like his family has been in this town for generations. They built a statue for this man, so obviously he was a big deal at some point, and then the family stayed there. So it's to be presumed that they have had money for some time.
Oh, absolutely. And like to be clear, this general definitely owned slaves at some point. I feel like he was a slave owner.
Yeah, I mean,
we don't know that for a fact, but I know that for a fact.
If you didn't own slaves, they're not going to build a statue for you. Who the hell do you think was building the statues?
That's one of the requirements.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so I'm thinking about. We talked about the drums and how only he could hear it. Now that I think about it, I think only the kids can hear the drums.
So let's actually discuss this because as I was watching the film, I was taking notes on this, and I'm like, he is the only person that hears the drums. Even when he brings it into his house, his parents don't hear it. Mm-hmm. He's the only one that hears it. And then later in the film, when Judy and Peter hear the drums, their aunt doesn't hear it.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, who is hearing these drums?
I think it's just the kids.
Is it only kids that can hear the game? But then I actually had a second thought, which I'm gonna just tease, and I will get there later when we start talking about the game.
A little thigh.
Yeah. This is just a quick teaser. We're gonna come back to that. But I have another theory as to why they heard the game and the adults didn't.
Okay, we'll get back to that. So, I guess we'll just get back. We'll get into like the actual meat of it. So, basically, Alan talks to his dad at the house after his dad says like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna ship you off to this prestigious school," and he's like, "I don't want to go. I don't want to talk to you ever again. I don't want to go to this stupid school," and he's like pissed off. And his parents get dressed up. They're ready to go out to some like gala, some
fundraising event.
Yeah, who knows?
Something.
So they leave out, and at this point, Alan's like, "You know what? Screw these guys. I'm leaving. I'm gonna run away." And you see him like with a suitcase. He like packs an outfit or two, and then like a loaf.
Well, he throws a hissy fit when his dad tells him he's gonna go to boarding school. They get in an argument. His dad's like, "We're gonna discuss this later when I get home." And Alan says like, "Yo, I'm never talking to you again." Mm-hmm. And he ends up getting exactly what he wished for. Unbeknownst to him, he's gonna get sucked into a board game. But it just reminded me of like Home Alone, of like how Kevin McAllister is yelling at his parents like, "I never want to see you jerks again. I hope I wake up and you guys are gone." And then like that's exactly what happens to him. And then he ends up finding out how much he misses his family.
I made my family disappear.
I made my family disappear. Like this is basically exactly what happens to Alan in this movie, which is 3 years after Home Alone came out. So it's kind of the same idea of like, I wish I didn't have my parents because they're annoying. But then once you lose them, it's like I just want my parents back.
Is this a message to children everywhere that maybe we shouldn't be wishing that our parents are gone?
This is exactly what it is. Because parents are the ones who were writing these movies.
Right.
They're like, these ungrateful brats. They couldn't survive a day without us.
Not a day.
We're going to show them what it really is.
But, so Alan's like, "Yeah, Dad, like, this is gone along. I just can't do this." So he gets his suitcase out, and what made me laugh is, like, he packs, like, a loaf of Wonder Bread in his luggage. And I just started laughing to myself, like, how long is this bread going to last, bro? You're 12, first of all. You have no money.
And no meat to make a sandwich. It's just the bread.
Just the bread. That's all you need. But also, where are you going to sleep? How are you going to live? Like, he didn't think any of this through. He just getting ready to go. So he opens the door, and lo and behold, Sarah's there. And he's like, "Sarah, what are you doing here?" And she's like, "I'm here to bring back your bike." And for a moment, it's like, Sarah's a really sweet girl, right? Why are you laughing?
I'm laughing at the fact that she knew her boyfriend stole the bike. Yeah. She brings it back to Alan, but she's still with her boyfriend.
Right. So that's the whole thing. It's like, why is it that these women, girls, whatever, or like even the teens in high school films, it's like it's always the sweet girl and they're going out with the jock who's a jerk. And they know he's a jerk. Yeah. And it's like, why are you with this man? It's like, oh, don't mind Kevin or don't mind whoever. Like, he's just like that sometimes. It's like, I don't get it.
The jerk, jock, the quarterback of the football team, and his girlfriend is always like a great girl, right?
Always.
I don't know.
Sweet as pie.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry about him." It's like, yeah. So she brings it back, and basically, I think does the game start playing the drums at this point?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, they both hear it, or at least Alan hears it.
Yeah, and he's like, "Let's play this game."
Yeah, I mean, we got to get into the
meat of it.
We got to get into the game. So let's get into the game.
So I set the game up, and first of all, this game, I don't know what's going on with it, but it sets itself up. Like the pieces just like erect themselves and go to the starting positions. And then when you drop the dice, it basically just moves the spaces for you on the board game.
Well, my
Like,
theory is that
it's crazy.
this is rooted in witchcraft.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
because, yeah, as everything you said, and also the game doesn't have any cards to read. The game just reads to you in
Yeah.
like this mystery mist that appears in the center of the game. So anytime someone rolls or even drops the dice,
yeah.
and the game reads it as a roll, then it basically would just show you the directions.
Magic 8-ball, baby.
It does look like a Magic 8-ball, and there's no, at least not to our knowledge, at no point in the film do any of the directions repeat. So it's very possible that they're just creating them in real time. There's some sort
cool
of
idea.
mysterious witchcraft. And I also feel the fact that the movie starts in the 1860s in New Hampshire. We know that there's a history of witchcraft in New England at that time.
Yep.
So I do feel like that might have been something that they were subtly hinting at.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like the whole New England aspect of it, the Salem witch trials aspect of it. So,
and there's no other like real reason for the film to take place
in
New England at all, other than that. So that's how I'm reading it.
So did a witch before they died hex this game and then say, "I'm coming for all your children"? Is that what happened?
Yeah, I don't really know because I feel like I don't even know if board games existed in the 1860s, but the game would have had to be hexed or there was some spell put on it that created this mayhem.
This is kind of lit.
That made them bury it in the first place.
Right. Okay. So we have this witchcraft.
But I think what we really need to get down to is like the actual mayhem, the peril.
The peril.
Yeah, let's get to the peril.
Okay. So basically they start to play this game and Sarah rolls first and we start to hear like bats in the chimney. We don't see them yet, but like we're hearing this sound. And then her place, her little piece moves across the board by itself. And then now it's time for Alan to roll. And then when he rolls, now do you remember what it actually read on the screen when he rolls?
It says, "In the jungle you must wait until the dice reads 5 or 8."
5 or 8, that's right. 5 or 8. And at this point, like you see the game starts to suck Alan like directly into it. Like it starts with his fingers, and again, the CGI here is pretty cool. Starts with his fingers, and you see him like his body turns into like a mist almost, and he's swirling around Sarah, and the game just sucks him in. And then at that precise moment, the bats come out of the chimney and start to like circle the room. So Sarah's like, "Oh heck no!"
Yeah, they swarm Sarah.
She's like, "I'm getting out of here." So she ends up running directly out the front door, screaming down the street. And I just couldn't help but think about poor Sarah's mental state because. Can you imagine you're playing a board game and your friend gets sucked in?
You talk about childhood trauma. She's got it in spades.
No one's going to believe her. And later on, they allude to the fact that like she has this therapist, she's working through different medications, and she clearly is troubled after this because everyone basically thought that Alan was either ran away or that he had been murdered. And that his dad had chopped him into bits and
Right.
hid his body in the walls of the house, So talk about trauma, that was absolutely crazy. It goes to show you that this game is basically like a Ouija board on acid because it's doing the most. Now, I kind of want to talk about the different things that come out of the game.
Yes,
and then we can
let's get to it, baby. This is what this is all about.
So we mentioned the bats, we mentioned getting sucked in. We also have these monster mosquitoes. And now the stingers on these things, I mean, they can penetrate through a windshield of a car. They could cut through like the top, through the hood of the car and like down. So that was kind of crazy. And also there were news reports of people getting these mysterious bites and being hospitalized. So like it's causing a serious issue within the community. Then we have the lion.
I mean, everything is causing serious issues in this community.
But I mean, the mosquito bites started off.
Yeah.
Then you have the lion that shows up, and again, I think like the special effects were great. The lion looked very realistic for the time.
The lion was fire. The monkeys.
And okay, so the monkeys were like my favorite part. Like hands down, Okay, so first time we see them, they show up in the kitchen, and they're just like making a mess of everything.
Yeah.
They're throwing plates, they're opening the refrigerator and throwing food all over the place. They're acting like a hot mess. But what really made me laugh was like as the movie progresses, the monkeys keep like showing up.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of scenes, but like there's one where like David Allen Greer is outside of his cop car and he first sees the adult Alan Parrish, played by Robert Williams, and he's talking to him, and the monkeys are in his car, and one of the monkeys fires a shotgun. I was dying. I don't know why it was so funny, but I was dying. And then there's another scene where the monkeys are like on some cop motorcycle, and one monkey has a gun. He's pointing it at them. I was like, the monkey has a gun. This is hilarious. They just kept doing all these things then later on in the movie, there's a scene where everyone's like looting because, of course, when the world goes to hell, everybody wants to steal.
Naturally.
Why I'm stealing a bicycle, I'm not quite sure why that's the thing I would steal.
You always wanted a bike.
Like, there were people like getting super soakers and Nerf guns. Like, I was like, why? If I'm looting, this is not.
Hey man,
I'm not going to the game section if I'm looting.
Man, super soakers.
I'm not going to the game section. I'm not going to the game section.
Was pretty popular in the 90s,
you gotta hit up the electronics. You gotta hit up food.
It's a movie for kids. They're not gonna be going to steal steaks. It's good.
I'm not saying steak, but get some Wonder Bread and Wonder Bread and milk.
Yeah, you would have gotten some
milk,
Wonder Bread.
eggs, and bread. Right? That's what you steal.
Naturally.
Yeah, that's all you really need. But like,
that's all you really need.
So,
not the big screen TV. Not the
But yeah, we saw monkeys running around, and I'm like, why do monkeys need TVs? Like, it just, I just couldn't stop laughing. I couldn't stop laughing. The monkeys were my favorite by far.
So we had the monkeys. We had a stampede.
Oh, the stampede was really cool.
We had quicksand.
Okay, pause on the quicksand.
Okay.
Because I feel like in the 90s, we were kind of led to believe as children that quicksand can just eat you alive.
Well, certainly.
And that basically, if you got stuck in quicksand, like your life is over. And this is not true at all. So just in case any of you
in case you run into any quicksand.
Just in case you weren't aware of this.
Fret not.
So, so I looked this up on the Encyclopedia Britannica. Okay.
Ooh.
Yes, I'm throwing it back here, and this kind of brings me back to my childhood when we used to ask Dad a question about something, and he'd be like, "Go look it up."
Look it up.
And I hated it, but here I am.
But now, here you are looking things up, so it must have stuck.
Here I am. So the question was, basically, can you drown by quicksand? The answer is no. Quicksand is basically sand that behaves as a liquid because it is saturated with water. It's basically a mucky nuisance, but it's impossible to die in the way depicted in movies, and that's because quicksand is denser than the human body. So basically, if you get stuck in it, because our legs are pretty dense, like your legs will sink and you'll kind of get stuck, but it's not going to just like completely like suck you in and then like a drain, and you're like, whoa, and then it just eats you. That's not how it works.
So what you're saying is the movie Jumanji is not realistic.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. But in case any of you thought that could happen, it can't happen.
That's the one part of this movie.
That's the one part I wanted to point out.
Fact check. You're like,
I'm like, look, this quicksand
is
taking it too far.
I don't know. That's crazy.
No, because when you were kids, you really thought quicksand worked like that. Tell me you didn't. I mean, you did. You thought it was real, which is funny because the rest of the movie is clearly made up. But for some reason, quicksand, we were like, oh,
that
might actually work.
There was was there a monsoon at one point?
Yeah.
There's a monsoon with like a crocodile or an alligator.
There's a crocodile because he told her it's not an alligator, it's a crocodile. But yeah, there was a monsoon.
Which also, how would he have known that?
I thought about that too. I'm like,
he's been in the jungle since he was a child. He's been stuck there for 26 years.
No one's teaching you difference between an alligator and a crocodile.
Yeah, I'm surprised he even still remembers how to speak English. For all we know, he hasn't interacted with another human in 26 years. We really
except
don't
for the
know.
hunter. Apparently, he's been trying to kill him. So yeah.
Wait, so the hunter's been trying to kill him since before the game?
Because think about it, when the hunter comes out, before he comes out, he says, oh no, like he knew who he was.
Yeah, that's true.
He's been chasing him for 26 years.
How does he not get this guy yet? The hunter's also a terrible shot. He had some really...
The hunter's also played by his dad. I don't know if you caught that.
I did not.
Basically, he just has like a fake stash and fake eyebrows. And his dad is also the same guy from Law and Order. That's who his dad is.
The guy from Law and Order?
Yeah. His name is Jonathan Hyde.
Okay.
He played the dad and also he played him.
You know what's funny is at the beginning of the movie when they showed General Angus Parrish, I thought
the hunter
that because the thing is like I remember bits and pieces of this movie, but I didn't really remember all the details.
That's
and
funny.
so like I remember that there's like a hunter guy that shows up in the movie, and I'm like, oh, like I'm thinking ahead, like. Oh, this is probably like a statue that gets brought back to life.
Oh, that's
and
interesting.
They like explicitly show this statue in the middle of the town square at the beginning of the movie, but then like it never gets referenced again.
Yeah.
So I was assuming that they're showing it as like a
wait.
Yo, we're gonna bring this back later, but then they just don't.
So you thought his great grandfather was trying to kill him?
Sure. I also thought that he was trying to, based on my memory of the movie, I thought he was trying to kill all of them.
Oh, okay.
But that
I think I saw that. I thought that as well
Yeah.
until I watched it. Because apparently Alan rolls something and the hunter comes out to chase him because that's who rolled it. But that's kind of a plot hole because it seems as if he's chasing him the entire time. I don't know.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, yeah, that's weird.
I don't really get that.
Again, it's Jumanji. We can't analyze it for plot holes.
But one thing I will say is, so when the whole quicksand thing happens, Kirsten Dunst, I'm just gonna call her.
That's a fun part of the movie.
Kirsten Dunst like rolls quickly so that the quicksand would stop and basically it becomes like a hardwood floor again.
Yeah.
And in my head, I was just like, well, that's how you play the game. Like, everybody has to just roll in quick succession and the game would just be over. Like, why am I waiting?
Yes.
Why am I waiting for, like, all these things to happen where it's just like, go, go, go. Everybody just go. And then the game ends, right?
Well, I think the issue, because I had that thought too, is like, oh, if they just roll in quick succession, then they could somebody will get to the end.
Yeah.
And, like, the game doesn't end until somebody wins.
Right.
The problem is, you notice that every time they roll, like something crazy happens, whether it's a stampede or a rainstorm or quicksand or monkeys, and that whatever it is that happens causes them to usually grab the game and like run somewhere. There's also the one part where like they go and the game kind of like gets lost. They have to try to find it.
Oh, the hunter steals it. Yeah.
Yeah, Peter has to like swing from a branch to save it from a river. Peter starts turning into a monkey at one point.
Oh, yeah.
Which was also strange.
He tried to cheat the game because he was trying to get like a 12 to basically end the game.
He tried to drop it on the...
So again, witchcraft. Like the game knew he was trying to cheat and they were like, nah. And so he basically like, grew a tail and that was...
Yeah, but he like became more and more of a monkey as the movie progressed, which is to say like if they didn't finish the game and another 26 years passed, he would have just become like a full-blown monkey. Like that's where they was headed. Because he was already like shifting into monkey territory after like an hour.
Right.
So by the end of the day,
it would have been over for him. He would have been nonverbal.
Yeah, it would have been done.
That's crazy. The poisonous vines. The vine that could like basically crush the police car, like ate it. Those vines like took over the entire house. Actually looked really cool. I actually liked the way it looked.
Yeah, I mean, some of the CGI is better than others. It's 1995, so this is like the same year that Toy Story came out.
Yeah.
I think this is when studios started to feel comfortable experimenting with it more. When you see special effects from like 80s movies, it's usually pretty bad, and they'll do as much as they can without it to try to like cover up for the fact that they know that it's not that good. I feel like they were experimenting with it a little bit more at this time. By the time we get to the mid-90s, people are feeling like, okay, like we can actually pull this off. And then you're seeing movies like Bug's Life and Ants that come out later in the decade where like they're starting to play more with computer graphics as well. So I do feel like some parts of this movie were better done than the others.
Yes. I mean, the monkeys looked terrible.
The monkeys looked awful.
But they were just really funny. But yeah, I mean, like, the lion was good. The stampede was really good.
So what was your favorite... I mean, I think it's the monkeys. Right. You already said that.
What about you?
Yeah. I think... I did really enjoy the lion. just because it was just cool
Yeah.
to see like a lion running through this big mansion. And like lions are always cool.
Yeah.
I mean, they're lions.
The kings of the jungle.
I think the only downside to the lion is that it happens almost like too early.
Yeah.
So then there's like so many other events that
Yeah.
take place after the lion
forget
that you
about
almost
it.
kind of forget about it. But I also really like the stampede. Like
The stampede was dope.
I like this idea of a stampede running through this house and then just like venturing out into this town.
Yep.
And the stampede's also cool the same way like the monkeys keep recurring. The stampede also keeps recurring because like you never know when like you're just gonna see an elephant or a rhino or an ostrich. And they're just like continuing to run throughout the town and just like tear things apart.
Can you imagine?
So it's like, it's the mayhem of like, you have these killer bats and killer mosquitoes and these vines and all this stuff, but then there's also just like wild jungle animals running around this suburban town in the middle of New Hampshire. So I feel like the mayhem that those caused, they did a good job of containing the lion. Because the lion never really gets loose in the town. That would have...
No, that would have been over. Because he would have killed people.
That would have been a very different movie.
Like, no one actually...
You would have had to upgrade it to rated R.
Yeah, no one actually dies in this film.
No.
They just get injured. So the stampede was just like, wow, like, oh, we're at a stoplight. And then the stampede runs across the intersection. Like,
Stampede's fire.
That's cool stuff.
I think I did really enjoy the monsoon at the end as well. But I like the stampede more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. We also had two more things we didn't mention. They had giant spiders that came out. They weren't out for very long.
Those were fine. And
then they had the earthquake. The earthquake is kind of what got Alan out of the quicksand.
Right.
That was stuck in his neck.
Yeah.
So they had the earthquake that kind of split it apart, and then the board falls down. This board game is very powerful in the sense that you could roll the dice completely off the board, and it still would know who rolled it and what you rolled. Because if you remember, if you roll out of turn, it's not going to move.
Yeah.
Which is
witchcraft, guys. Like, this is the whole point.
Which is absolutely insane. I wanted to talk about, like, any, like, funny moments that you...
The monkeys.
Well,
the monkeys are funny, and any scene that David Alan Grier is in is funny.
Yes.
Like, he's the comedic relief throughout the film. There's one point where Alan handcuffs him to the door of his car because he doesn't want him to leave, and then he like tossed the keys, which I was like, that's not
I hate when they do that in movies.
Because then
you're gonna need them.
Yeah.
And they do end up driving.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened.
I guess the keys were just for the handcuff and not for the car.
Yeah, but then that's also like, how's he... Anyway. So then they start driving, and then he... what is it? Alan is trying to drive the car while David Alan Grier is in the driver's seat because he's handcuffed to the door. And then there's just like... You also get the sense of, again, like, this is kind of cringe because it's like the one black guy in this town. But you do get the sense of just like, this is a guy who can't escape bad luck.
Yeah.
So like, he got this bad luck that happened to him in 1969. And now he's trying to like reinvent himself with a new career. And it's like, he just continues to keep getting the worst of it. Of just like, every time he tries to do something good for people or he's tried to fix something, he ends up getting screwed. His car gets ruined. His car gets stolen. He gets handcuffed. He has to chase away from this thing. The car doesn't drive. It's leaking fluid. Like, it just everything that just happens to him throughout the course of the movie is just like, he's just the butt of every joke.
That's very true.
Which he does a really good job of keeping it light and funny because at the end of the day, it is a kid's movie.
Right.
But it's also like, damn, I feel bad for this
Right. You have to feel bad for him because it's like, he cannot get a break.
Nah, he really couldn't.
So what I'll say that I thought was funny, and it kind of just brought it back to like the 90s moment, was the first time they go to see Sarah Whittle. Alan basically is now a full-grown man. He's wearing like some kind of like Adam and Eve type clothing. He's wearing like banana leaves.
Nah, he's in straight George of the Jungle attire. He looks like Tarzan, and he has a humongous beard, obviously because he hasn't shaved.
Well, that's the first time he sees the kids anyway. By the time he sees Sarah, I believe he was able to get clothes from like a homeless man living in like the Parrish shoe factory, like in the upstairs part. It's like there's a homeless man living there, and he tells him like, "Oh yeah, your parents are dead."
That was so
and, like,
random.
I was like, "Why is there? This is weird." Oh, here's some clothes to you. It's cold outside. And I was like, all right. So anyway, he goes to see Sarah, and basically he like is able to tell her who he is. He's like, yeah, I was trapped in the game, and she's just so shocked. She does that '90s faint where like you just fall flat back and like on the floor. And I was just like, oh, the '90s faint. Like I haven't seen that obviously in forever. But back then it was like that was a very popular thing to do. It's like you get shocked, like think of Home Alone, Kevin, and then she passes out.
Remember the spit take?
Oh my god, the spit take.
There's a lot of spit takes in the 90s.
They still do that on Disney Channel, I'm sure.
Oh my god, they probably do.
Yeah, they still do that.
They're still doing laugh tracks. So
Oh, wow.
I mean, that's also very 90s. I feel like the other thing with Sarah that was funny is, I mean, it's not funny now. Maybe we'll talk about this in the part where we talk about things that didn't age well, but like her dealing with that trauma of just like playing it for laughs that she has to like go to a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Which like I feel like the whole like seeing a psychiatrist or having like mental health issues is like way more of a serious discussion now. But at that time in the 90s,
funny.
like anybody who goes to see a shrink is basically like it's funny or there's something like
It's
seriously
like, oh, you're
wrong
a
with
nut
you
job.
because you would never. Normal people don't go to therapy
And take medication. Yeah.
But I thought it was well done because it kind of carried out of like if this actually happened to a little girl,
Of course.
26 years later when she's a 40-year-old woman, like what does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
Someone disappeared in front of you.
And no one believes
It's a story
you.
that literally no one would believe.
Yeah.
You've never seen him again, and then like he shows up 26 years later and is like,
That's
yo,
insane.
it's me. I got trapped in the game. You
It's
weren't
like-
crazy.
It's like, what?
And so there's a part in the film where like right after that happens, she's like on the phone with her psychiatrist and she's like, I know what you told me, da da da. I'm trying to stay grounded. And she's like using all of this language
Yeah.
about like maintaining her mental health, which I thought was like pretty funny.
It was, yeah. And then she's like, but he's actually here. Like, I thought it wasn't real, but he's actually sitting here in front of me. But yeah, so interestingly enough, she actually now is a fortune teller. When they go to her house, there's a sign on there that says like Madam So-and-so.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, so now she's doing fortunes for a living? I thought that was kind of interesting.
What do you think that was about? I actually forgot about that, but
yeah, I was like, that's quite, I don't know.
Well, it's also when they show up and they ask for Sarah, she like is
I don't
like,
go by that name anymore.
Yeah, so maybe that was
She's
her way
reinvented
of,
herself.
Like, of,
And
like,
also
abandoning her former.
Yeah. And also it's the
Identity.
fact that it's like I've seen something that, makes me believe that there's something else out there,
Yeah.
So maybe she's now more open to exploring things of that nature.
Can't play with them witchcraft board games, boy. That's your first mistake.
And then I thought it was interesting that the little boy, when he's trying to get Alan to play the game and Alan doesn't want to play, and he's like, oh, I get it. You're scared. He's like, I'm not afraid. Again, going back to like his dad telling him to face his fears and basically essentially to man up, which I hate that phrase, but you know what I mean? And basically he's like, fine, I'll play. No, I'll watch you guys play. And he goes out there, and then, of course, his sister looks at him, and she's like, good job. And he's like, it's called reverse psychology. Dad does it on me all the time. And I was like, I remember when that was, like, a thing. Like, oh, you're using reverse psychology on him. Like, that's what they would do on, like, sitcoms or in movies to get people to do what they wanted. And I'm like, that's so funny how, like, nobody would say that now. But back then, it was, like, a big deal. Like, oh, this is,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha, man. And also, for me, was also like the idea that would obviously not work if
Of
he
course.
did it to an adult. But the fact
But
that
Alan's not really an adult.
Alan is an adult, but he actually has never done adult things. And so
Yeah.
he's still kind of trapped in the mind of who he was when he got
child.
sucked into the game. He just had to grow up in terms of survival.
Man.
But he hasn't grown up in terms of social skills. And so, like, reverse psychology would probably actually still work on this man.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed that. And then also what I thought was fun is going back to the looting when they were in the Save-A-Lot store. There were a lot of things that were very like Home Alone-esque. I know we mentioned Home Alone before, but
Boop, 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 boop.
but like
Didn't they like put a
they
bunch
put
of like
liquid detergent,
soap on
yeah,
the floor,
and he's like, whoa, 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 whoa,
and then he
whoa.
slips on it. Boop, 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 boop.
And then they have the paint cans come
Oh,
down
yeah.
against him. At one point,
Paint cans is Home Alone 2.
At one point, he shoots like a bunch of tires come out,
Oh,
and the
right.
tires like make them fall down. And I'm like, oh, this is Home Alone. This is what
There
we're
are
getting.
a few parallels from that movie.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, that was very entertaining, and of course it's for children, so you get a lot of laughs there, and it's like all the hijinks, like how are they gonna get out of this one? Oh, we gotta steal the game. We gotta get out of here. So basically, what happens? Spoiler alert: they end up finishing the game. They finish the game, and everything goes back to how it was before. All the animals get sucked in, the hunter goes away, and basically Alan and Sarah are now going back to as they were as children. It's now 1969, and they're sitting in his living room, and the game's finished, and they're just like, wow, like, can you imagine like what kind of mind warp that is? Like, I just lived all these years of my life,
26 years.
yeah, almost 30 years of my life, and now I'm going back to 12-year-old Joel. Like,
You know what?
whoa,
Yes.
that would be great though, because you could like learn from your mistakes.
But then it's also, that's what I was thinking. Like, if I went back to 26 years ago, then it's like, I don't know, maybe I would like really enjoy being able to like relive that experience. My life would play out a lot differently, obviously. But I can also think of like certain decisions or different, big life moments that maybe would have played out differently.
I'll make some stock
if
decisions, baby. That's what I would do.
That's true.
I would be like, oh, someone called Google, someone called Amazon, someone called Apple.
Something called, listen, that's facts. Something called Twitter, something called Facebook.
Yeah, I'm putting money in all them bad boys.
I mean, I wouldn't have money because I was 11.
But I'm saying as you grew older,
yeah,
you'd be
definitely.
like...
But outside of that, just thinking about, I think the other piece about it is, once they finish the game, Judy and Peter, these two kids that helped them finish the game, they don't exist anymore now because you went back 26 years. The other thing about the film is that, like, there's a lot of scary moments, but nobody ever actually dies. And so that's another interesting, like, theory about Jumanji is, like, if somebody had gotten shot by the hunter or got their head bit off by the lion, would they just, like, come back to life later?
I think they would.
It's 26 years later, but everything reverts back.
Yeah, okay, so yes, I think if you die while playing the game, you would theoretically come back, but that's only if the game could be completed. So you would need...
Well, if the game doesn't get completed, then you don't revert.
Well, yes, that's true.
Then they would have still been in 1995 if they never finished the game.
Can you... So, like, if you die and everybody just stops playing, then that's it, you're just dead.
I think so, because it has to be the same people
The same
who
people
started
playing,
the game,
yeah.
right? Like, if Alan and right, when Judy and Peter get the game, they try to play it and they can't.
They can't because they need the two other
Alan
players.
and Sarah's game is still going on.
Yeah.
So whoever starts the game has to finish it.
But I wonder if you die, does Jumanji be like, all right, well, he's out?
Yeah, like,
then
it's like, all right, then the game starts over.
Yeah,
but
like,
then it doesn't go back in time. Then it's still 1995, but the game starts over, and then whoever starts it again, it's like it restarts the cycle.
God. So you're
But like, if Alan and Sarah both died playing the game, then I think they just die,
just over.
and the monkeys are still loose, and like that's just it.
Something about those monkeys, I don't know what it is.
It could have been a very dark film. Like, that's really what I'm getting down to.
So basically, it'd be like Jumanji Apocalypse. It would just be, monkeys and bats.
Yeah.
And God, that's...
Now, that's an interesting spin-off idea, though.
Jumanji Apocalypse.
Like, you could make Jumanji an R-rated movie.
You really could. Instead of that trash they came out with.
I don't even
God.
know. That's a movie
I refuse to watch.
Yeah, I'm not watching that.
So when they go back they revert back in time, and then time passes. So now we have Sarah, and she's now together with Alan. They're the adult versions, and this is the first time they're getting ready to meet the children when they come to the house. And before they meet the kids, you see Alan as an adult on the phone, and he's talking to what appears to be his father. And he makes a funny joke to him. He says, not a joke, but he says, those new cross trainers are doing really well. And then his dad says something in the background, and he's like, no, it's not a bra, it's a shoe. Because cross trainer, his dad thinks is like some kind
training
of
bra.
training bra
Right.
for women. And he's like, no, dad, it's a shoe. It's doing really well. So that kind of lets us know that David Alan Grier's character, his shoe actually does, in fact, sneakers are a thing. And maybe he ends up making money. We don't see his character again at the end. But we do know that.
Yeah, maybe Alan just stole his idea.
Oh, no,
which
he wouldn't do that.
I mean, who knows, man?
No.
White people been stealing from black folks for ages.
But I think he's redeemed. I think he's a good guy now. So I don't think that he would have stole his idea.
It's also assumed that he's now taken over the business.
Yes.
So Parrish Shoes is still alive and thriving.
Well. He's still in the big old house.
And he pays it forward because he never forgets Judy and Peter. And
he gives their parents a job.
He
or his dad,
finds their parents, gives them a job, and when they say they're about to go on vacation, they're like, no!
Because that's when they die.
Because that's the vacation where they kill themselves. So now he
has
an
it was a car accident.
Yeah.
They didn't kill themselves. Yes. Oh my God.
They didn't kill.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's not what I meant. I meant like,
It's not that dark movie. It's a children's film. Come on.
Yeah, I feel like he's like, they don't know who I am, but I owe them my life in an alternate reality because technically it didn't really happen, even though it did happen. But also, it also feels like the bully is a little vindicated because he actually did lose his girl to Alan. So, he was he was right to be jealous the whole time. Because she does end up marrying this nigga. And
she does marry him.
Like, that's the whole thing.
I mean, can we talk about the fact that she basically almost took a bullet for him? Because before the game ends, the hunter, traps him in the room, and then he shoots the gun. And she's like, no! And the bullet almost hits her, and then at that very moment, one of the kids, wins the game or whatever in the game. But I'm like, she almost died for him.
Yeah, the bullet, stops.
The bullet stopped right in front of her face.
And then it, gets sucked back into the game, which is also kind of a plot hole because he buys the gun at a local gun store.
Witchcraft. You forget.
Yeah, but the gun isn't part of the game, so it's
it's in his hands though.
Yeah,
so it is part of the game.
It's splitting hairs, I guess.
Yeah, the whole hunter thing is definitely some stuff that does not age well.
So let's go there then. What else do you think didn't age well in this movie?
Okay, so there's a scene where, like you said, so basically the hunter has his rifle and he runs out of bullets, and he's like, I gotta get a new gun. So he goes to this gun store. And the guy's like, well, yeah, but you got to fill out these applications, do all this stuff. And he's like, I have gold coins. So he's like, oh. So he puts the closed sign on the front of the store. Yeah. And they basically give him this crazy weapon. Mm-hmm. It's
it's like an automatic weapon.
Yeah, with sights on it and everything. And he's like, oh yeah, this is perfect. And gives him this gun. And then he says to him, you're not a postal worker, are you? I was like, oh my God. You're not putting that in a movie right now.
Not right now.
You're
no.
I saw that and I was like, whoa. Again, back then, pretty funny. Right now.
I mean, I did just laugh. Yeah, so I don't know what that says about me.
You're kind of a trash person. Yeah. But I definitely was like, yikes. It does not age well. But apparently for you, it does.
Going postal. That's what the phrase is.
Yeah,
right?
But no one's saying that now.
No. I feel like the only thing that I really thought about was really just the CGI on the monkeys, which is it's just pretty bad.
It was really bad.
It is.
I don't know why the monkeys were so much you can do lions and a whole stampede.
Even the stampede looked better.
Yeah.
But I feel like the lions, a lot of the CGI on the stampede was them running in and out of sight of the camera.
Yeah.
So it's not like the monkeys. You're just the camera was just on them for extended periods of time. Which gives you as a viewer more time to actually view how bad the CGI is. And then especially when they were in the kitchen, it was just
oh my God, it was so bad.
Yeah, this doesn't hit.
But it made it funnier.
It did kind of make it funnier.
So no quotes that you could think of that
I had a few quotes that I wrote down. One was when he finally after he comes back from the game, they resurrect him by rolling a 5 or an 8. Mm-hmm. And then he's in the house. And he's finally able to take a shower and use the bathroom. Mm-hmm. And he's like, finally, no more banana leaves. Yeah. That was a great line. So he gets a chance to take a shower and shave and all that. And then there was another part where I think Bonnie Hunt's character is with the kids and they go into town, and then that's when they see like everybody's looting and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, "What's happening?" And then she's like, "Looks like there's a sale."
At the Save a Lot,
So
where
that
people are
was-
looting bicycles.
Those are the ones I pulled out.
Yeah.
What about themes? You got any big
So
themes?
yeah, I think it's really standing up to your to face your fears essentially, because at the beginning, he's being bullied. He lies to his dad about the shoe thing, and so at the end of the movie when he comes back, the parents come home and he runs over, he's like, Dad, I miss you, gives him a big hug, and Dad's like, I was just here. Well, okay.
I was gone for 2 hours, son.
He
What
was
are you talking
like,
about?
all right. And he says, Dad, just so you know, today at the factory, it was me who put the shoe on the conveyor belt. And his dad's like, thank you for telling me that, son, because he would have fired. Oh boy. So I think it was
David Allen Greer.
yes,
I don't remember his name.
I don't either. It's fine. But I think it was the idea of first of all, take responsibility for your actions
Mhm.
was a big one, and standing up, because even for the hunter, standing up to the hunter, because the whole time he's running, and by the very end he's like, I'm not running anymore, which honestly I think was kind of dumb, because I'm like, this guy has a gun, I'm not running anymore. Just shoot me? What? I don't.
I mean, 26 years of running for your life, you might run into a point where you're like, I'm not running anymore. Screw
guess.
this. It's not worth it.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard of people say things like that. This is kind of dark, but whatever. Serial killer documentaries and stuff where people are someone's chasing them, and the people on the podcast will be like, I mean, I'll be honest with you. If this guy was chasing me for 3 hours, I might just be like, all right. I don't have the stamina
My
for it.
cardio's not that good.
Yeah, it's just all right, just
Bro,
it's
win.
over.
You got your steps in, bro.
So yeah, I'll give you that. But I think it was more of the facing your fears, taking accountability.
So for me, there's a few themes. I actually didn't have any of the same ones that you had, but
cool.
I think one of them was trauma management and dealing with loss. And so that comes up a few times. Number one, you have the fact that Alan disappears. His parents spend the rest of their life and fortune trying to find him. When Alan comes back and sees their tombstone, it shows that they died 5 months apart.
Yeah.
Which is also showing that they had dedicated their lives, and once one of them died, the other parent died shortly thereafter.
Which happens a lot with couples who've been together for a long time too.
Yeah. So, and they didn't even live to be that old. I think they were both in their 60s or 70s. And so they're having to deal with the trauma of losing their son. Sarah's having to deal with the trauma of losing her best friend and
her mental health,
thinking that she's going crazy. So then how she deals with it is different than how his parents deal with it. But then when Alan comes back, his parents are dead.
Ugh.
He's got to deal with it. And what ties it all together is Judy and Peter, who are only there because they lost their parents.
Their parents died too.
And they're trying to deal with it. And when you meet Judy and Peter, Judy is this smart aleck who uses sarcasm to hide, to mask the fact that she's going through this loss. Meanwhile, her brother is basically just not communicating to anyone other than his sister. And they're both having a hard time coping. So I think all of the different characters are kind of being tied together with how do you deal with the trauma? And once they're able to discuss it, you see Judy and Peter talking about what happened to mom and dad, and then that's when he starts talking again. That's when she stops using sarcasm for everything.
Yeah.
Once Sarah's character has an opportunity to see Alan again, she's like, oh, I'm not crazy. She's able to kind of deal with what happened. And so that's a kind of a running theme in the film. But I think the other part of it, you talked about the idea of facing your fears, but I think the other piece is also just being grateful for your circumstances, which goes back to the teaser that I gave at the beginning.
Oh, the drums.
Right. So why do some people hear the drums and others? And at first I thought maybe it's something that only kids can hear and the adults don't hear it. But as I was watching the movie, if you notice on the side of the game, there's a bunch of words inscripted, right? So on one side of the game it says beware, do not begin this game unless you intend to finish, da 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 da. But another thing that it says is Jumanji, a game for those who seek to find a way to leave their world behind.
Oh.
So my theory is the only people that can hear the drums are people who are dissatisfied with their current situation, which is Alan, which is Sarah, which is Judy and Peter. None of them want to be in the space that they're in for various reasons. And so the game is basically intended to show you like, oh, you think your life's bad?
I'll show you how bad it can get.
I'm going to show you how bad it can get to the point where by the time you finish playing this game, you're actually going to end up being grateful for the situation that you're in because it could always get worse. And I feel like by the end of the game, he learns the lesson, Sarah learns the lesson, Judy and Peter, well, they don't exist anymore. But in theory, they would have also learned a lesson too of just like, I mean, the game saves their parents, right?
You know what? That is a pretty astute reading.
Thank you.
Yeah. And the reason why I say that is because going back to the time they first played the game when Sarah shows up at the house when he's getting ready to run away, right? They go in to play the game, and I believe at that time, I don't think Sarah heard the drums. I could be wrong, but I don't believe. I think it was more like him being like, "Oh, let's play this game."
Yeah.
Which means that it wouldn't be kids because clearly they're the same age. At that point, Sarah was not dissatisfied with her life.
Right.
It wasn't until later on where it's like, "Oh, like I gotta play this stupid game again." But I think that reading makes sense.
And by the time she comes back, she is seeking to find a way to leave her world behind.
Oh, absolutely.
So she would have heard the drums the second time, even though she didn't hear it
the first time
when she was a child.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's very yeah. Gosh, there's a lot of themes in this movie.
Yeah, like it's actually kind of a deep movie,
really deep.
even though like it's like supposed to just be like, oh, look at this action and it's Robin Williams and like there's monkeys, but like it's actually giving you a lot from the perspective of facing your fears to owning up to responsibility, dealing with trauma, being grateful. Like there's a lot that they're packing into this subtly to the point where it's not preachy. But if you're looking for the themes, they're actually right there.
Okay. So are we ready to talk about our replay value?
Let's do it.
All right.
And for those that are new to the pod, what we do on this podcast is rate each film on a scale from 1 to 5 rewinds. 1 obviously being don't go see this again. 5 being it's an amazing 90s film that is worth rewatching as many times as you'd like. And I'm going to go with 5 rewinds. I mean, this movie was outstanding. Like it hit all of the right notes. Maybe the going postal part, maybe not so much, but
that's just one part.
Still got a chuckle out of me for some reason. So yeah, I mean, like I just feel like the CGI is a little dated, but once you can get past that, like it's actually just a fun movie to watch.
Yes.
Like it's just enough things happening where you're invested in seeing them escape and what's going to happen the next time they roll the dice, because every time it's just like this new jungle-based mayhem.
Right.
And the performances were good too. I thought Bonnie Hunt was great. Robin Williams as the main protagonist does a great job, even though he's not doing Robin Williams things. You have David Alan Grier there for the comic relief. The kids were also really good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, 5 out of 5.
5 out of 5. Is this your first 5 out of 5? The Sister Act?
No, I got Sister Act got a 5
Yeah.
out of 5 for me
Okay,
too.
yeah.
I mean, that was also pretty good.
Yeah, I agree with you with this one. Like I said before, it's like an hour and 40 minutes, and it did not feel like it.
No,
at all.
No, that time flew by.
There's so much going on. You're so excited. You're laughing. You're surprised. You're excited. You're fearful. What's going to happen? And there were so many lessons to learn as we both went over. Definitely watch this. I mean, you could watch this as an adult. You could watch it with your kids. There's no, sexy stuff. So, and even the violence is not real violence. It's like it's a comedic type of Home Alone-esque. I coined that phrase, by the way. Home Alone-esque violence. So no one's gonna die. No one's really actually getting hurt. And it's just a fun film. So go watch it.
There you go.
All right. So
that felt like a one of those like reading Rainbow recommendations.
So read Jumanji. I promise you, you won't be among the bored and restless.
Oh, I just love that.
I remember watching Reading Rainbow.
Man.
It felt like they would always say the same thing at the end of every book. This book is about blah, 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 blah. They'd give a review, and they'd be like, this book's great. You should pick it up. I was like, they never said, like, I didn't really like this book. There's a few things that I probably would have changed. It was always the same review. It was always like, this book's great. Go pick it up.
They want you to read.
Yeah, they do.
They want you to read.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
No, yeah, I get it.
All right, well, I guess.
So you got the next one, because I picked this movie.
You did pick this one. I will pick the next one. It's going to be a blast.
We'll see. We will all be the judge of that.
All right, y'all. Stay safe and enjoy those 90s movies.
Don't forget to rewind.
All right, later.